Hi, my name is Mare. I write fantasy novels and sci fi novels, and I talk about writing craft on the internet. Ridiculously, we've come to the end of the year, and so it's time to look back at my goals from last year and assess, did I hit them? What can we do differently next year? As this will be a nice little year end recap and also just looking ahead. If you're going to enjoy this video, give it a like and also subscribe for more writing craft content. I love diving into every writing craft resource that I can find, evaluating whether or not it has good advice and trying to put it into action. I also have a Fiverr helping other people, so if you're interested in me developmentally critiquing your book or doing book coaching with you to help you figure out where you may be stuck, then you can check out the link below. Okay, let's talk about what I did this year and what I did not do this year. So last year, like December, January, I put out a video talking about my plans and goals for next year, and I had written it down on a whiteboard like each month what I wanted to get done. I still have that. I will not subject you to looking at this for very long, but it's all here. So I'm going to be just telling you what is on this and what I thought I would be able to get done in 12 months and what reality looks like. Okay, so before we go through what I hoped to get done, let me tell you about my projects. So last year, what I had done was written the first book in a fantasy trilogy. I did not know at the time it was going to be a trilogy. So let's just say I wrote book one. For NaNoWriMo that year, I also wrote the first book of a sci-fi series. I'd done much more planning and brainstorming and rewriting for the fantasy series, so that was definitely my main focus. So the main goal for this year was to do a lot of developmental editing until about November, where I wanted to start drafting a new book for NaNoWriMo. That's pretty much what happened, generally, broadly. Let's go month by month and let's talk about what happened. So in January, I was supposed to reread my previous book, The Fantasy Project, that I had written in August, September, October, and also make a developmental editing plan, all in that same month, re-brainstorm everything, go into it with a new outline in February for developmental edits. In January, what I actually was doing was finishing my NaNoWriMo project because that one was 160,000 words long. I spent almost the whole month doing that. Right off the bat, my plans got pushed 1 month. I thought to myself, you know what, we can roll with this. This isn't tragic, we can handle it. So February and March were marked out for developmental edits on this book that I was supposed to have reread and planned in January. Instead, I took February and March to reread and do all the re-brainstorming, all the planning. And actually, I think I did a pretty good job with this because I was developmentally editing for the first time ever, and I had zero concept of how difficult that would be, and mostly how difficult the brainstorming process was and figuring out how to prioritize what to edit on the first and second round. It's such a chaotic process. It is almost terrifying, like to the point of paralysis. But I did eventually figure it out. I actually had a very productive April where I developmentally edited my entire book. However, that wasn't even the plan for April. I was supposed to be done developmentally editing that book by April, not beginning it in April. My plan was to go to the sci-fi book, switch projects, hand my fantasy book off to my alpha reader, and then go on and do my first round of my sci-fi project. So I will tell you right now, I have not touched my sci-fi project this year. So what I was really doing in May and June, after that one developmental editing round in April on my fantasy project, was nothing. I didn't work on my book, which is crazy. I've been going nonstop since the previous July. I did not give myself a break for the holiday. I burnt out basically. I had like a long period of burnout, pretty much from like December onward, which was pretty bad. And but I recovered, which is the good thing. I basically just looked at it as a giant rest in May and June that I needed. So what I did instead was I really focused on social media and I focused on reading and doing writing craft books, making sure I had my foundations right. And I thought that I had, but always getting a reminder and kind of a new perspective on those basics is so helpful. Okay, so moving on to the third quarter of the year, this would be July, August, September. My plan for this year was to be developmentally editing both my sci fi project and my fantasy project at the same time. I thought I was going to be on draft three, like totally revising this thing over again, when really I was still just digging into the first editing round and nobody else had read it yet. I did Camp Nano July and I failed a NaNoWriMo for the first time. And I was doing like a line edit and a giant developmental edit at the same time, which I don't necessarily recommend because it's bad for momentum basically. And if momentum is the thing that's emotionally keeping you going, then you're going to have a hard time going. But I don't regret it because the book came out really well in the end. And so in July, I was trying to edit one chapter a day, but I couldn't. I just could not. So I edited 15 chapters. So that's one chapter every 2 days. And that's not that bad. But in July, I was still feeling completely unmotivated. The breakthrough did not come until August. And what happened was that I read Deep Work by Cal Newport. It basically changed everything for me about the writing process, how I was thinking about it, how serious I wanted to be about it. And it gave me the kick that I needed to get back into it. That kick has not stopped. I feel like I've been on a high since August, which is a long time. That's like almost half a year, and it's been lovely. So, August, September, amazing months for productivity. I was really making progress and shaping this book up, the fantasy project, into what I wanted it to be. The editing stretched into October, which I did not want, but that's okay. We finished it like late October and then handed that off to my alpha reader. It is currently being read right now in December, where it was supposed to be read in April. I think that's 8 months behind. Nice. So my plan for the big NaNoWriMo season was to prepare to draft a new project. Back then, a year ago when I made my plan for the year, I picked a project out of a hat and it was just going to be some new one that I'd had an idea for but had literally nothing for, like nothing at all. So in August, one of the biggest things that happened was I got inspiration for books 2 and 3 of my fantasy series. And so I was like, okay, any other project is out the window at this point. I am so inspired about this stuff that we've got to keep going. I decided to draft book 2 for NaNoWriMo, which was an amazing choice. It's so good. So the actual plan for like that whole season of fall was to plan in September, start drafting in October, draft in November, finish drafting in December, and then take like a big chunk of December completely off and rest. So I planned book 2 in like 15 days. I don't know how I pulled that off because by all rights that should not have been possible because at the beginning of the 15 days I had no idea what I was going to be writing about and it came together and I went with it. So then in November I wrote 65,000 words. It was a fantastic month. I eventually had a breakthrough, figure out how to draft again. But with another 66,000 words in December, I finished book 2. So I did that yesterday. I finished it. I wrote 8,000 words yesterday, many, many chapters. Yeah, so the final verdict on book 2 is that it came out like 4 times better than book 1 probably will ever be. I can just tell that because of the developmental editing boot camp I put myself through this past year, my ability to figure out what actually makes a compelling scene, chapter, a tight, tension filled, conflict heavy sequence of events is so much sharper. It's actually just bizarre, like how much you can grow as a writer in 1 year. Keep working on it, keep writing, keep editing, keep thinking about story and writing craft and consuming, content and practicing it because oh my goodness, I can't wait to see what's ahead in a year from now because of how much I feel like I have completely changed my whole mindset. So I do have to say, the plan for November and December went off without a hitch. I finished a 127,000 word book in less than 2 months, in 50 days. And so now I'm at the part of the year where I have scheduled in rest. And that is exactly what I will be doing. I have a stack of books I haven't read, and I'm going to do that. I have a stack of writing craft books from last Christmas I have not read. I'm going to do that. So that's last year compared with this year. Okay, what are the takeaways? What are the lessons learned? Because there always are some lessons learned. I like to look at my life as a science experiment, especially my writing life, because I'm constantly trying to optimize it so that I don't ever fall in the same pitfall. I learned that I can burn out. I have been pretty much going full steam ahead for like my entire life. College was an exciting time for me being a biology student. I obviously burned out from school, but I had to keep going. And so it's not the same, right? Creative burnout is much different. When you lose like that passion and the love for it, you're like almost scared of the project. That is so much different than just being like, I don't want to study anymore. And so I learned not to do that, which largely is a scheduling thing and is also like if you go off the rails with the schedule you do create that hopefully you build in grace periods for yourself, then you just have to be nice to yourself. Like taking a month and a half to read, that was actually so much fun. And like it's a dead zone of, me not working on my book, but it's also like I rehabilitated myself and gathered new story ideas and actually had a really nice time. One thing I learned was about optimizing the writing. So this was really just something that clicked in the past month actually, where I write best in the morning. I've started waking up at like 4:30 to write in the morning just because I'm like, the more time that I get before I have to go to work or just start my day, the more amazing words I will get in. When I break that morning session and go do anything else, like I'll never get back to that level of clarity again in my day. But locking myself into a word count goal and trying to write in the evening when I'm tired and not getting good words and like not having high quality scenes, that's over for me. I'm not doing that anymore. I will go to bed and write a super high quality scene the next morning. That's obviously the better way to do it. And so I don't have a strict word count policy per day. It's like per week, per month. It's like longer goals. And so I want to try to write every day because I like doing that. There's a very specific time where I need to optimize my writing time to all be in that part of the day. And so that means I'm not stressed for the rest of the day. And it basically means that writing is no longer a thing that is ever stressful for me. That's a new thing. Writing has never been easier. As always, figure out how your brain works and do that. Do only what actually works for your brain, because if you keep doing things that don't work for your brain, you're going to get poor results and you're going to be sad. Yeah, so that's what I'll leave you with. Those are the big takeaways for me. Next year basically just looks like editing book 1 and 2 until they are good enough for other people to read. Or maybe I'll like write book 3 in November. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not doing anything strict next year. We're going to see how it goes, and we're going to be excited about each new step rather than stressed about not being on the step I planned. Love to know how your year went with writing, so let me know anything you want to in the comments: wins, losses, failures, lessons learned. Great, that's everything for this video. Thanks so much for watching my recap. I will see you in the next video on the next leg of the journey in 2024. Bye.